Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role Playing Gamers podcast. I'm Nathan, one of your hosts. I've got Matt with me here also. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
And we're glad to have Tomas Härenstam from Freely Publishing here with us again. Third time is a charm, I hope. So welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Today we're going to be talking about the new supplement for the Mutant Year Zero product line called Ad Astra. So mutants in space is what I'm gathering. So we're going to get into that a little bit. But first thing, Matt and I have not played Mutant Year Zero. We've played Twilight 2000. We've played Alien. We've read a lot of the Forbidden Lands product, but you started everything. The Year Zero engine started with Mutant Year Zero. If you can tell us how that came about and what was the impetus for launching up English role playing with that.
Yeah, I mean, Mutant Year Zero was the first game that Free League did in English. We had actually released 2 other games before that, but they were in Swedish only. Mm-hmm. And that was a bit of a, like we normally do things at Free League. We kind of just try things that we enjoy. It wasn't no master plan or anything. I mean, Mutant Year Zero was first done in Swedish. It's actually an old Swedish RPG, just like Dragonbane is. Mutant and Dragonbane were the 2 big RPGs of Sweden in the 80s and after that. And so Mutant Year Zero was actually our version of Mutant, and it was probably like that, depending on how you count, like the 4th or 5th or 6th edition of Mutant. First one came out in 1984, and our version, Year Zero, came out in 2014. So, yeah, and then we had done that, released that, and we were kind of happy with it, and we discussed whether we should try, releasing it in English for the, international market and see how that goes. And it started out, we talked to a few, because we figured we needed a partner to do that, and we talked to a few, and then we ended up talking to Modifius, who were by then doing the Mutant Chronicles RPG, which actually originally is the same game. Mutant Chronicles grew out of Mutant. That's why it's called Mutant Chronicles. It doesn't really have that much to do with any mutants anymore. I mean, Mutant Chronicles, but that's why the name is still that. They grew apart into like separate games, like in the mid 90s sometime. So it felt like a natural kind of fit to talk to Modifius, and we did. And they helped us. We made the game. We did all the, translating and printing and all of that. But they helped us distributing it and getting it out there. So that we did late 2014. So it's been a while now. But that was the first game that we did in English for the international market, and it was received fairly well. And that kind of where we started doing games internationally. That was the first one.
Yeah, you won some. So it's almost been 10 years now then that you've been doing English games. So awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In 2015, you won some awards for Mutant Year Zero, right?
Yeah, I think he won like a silver Emmy for best rules or something. And by then we didn't really know. I mean, I think we were barely aware of what an Emmy was. So we had no idea. But yeah, so it did, and it did get some traction and some nice reviews, and it did well. So that we felt we want to do more of this.
So I'm going to take a step back here. I kind of broke my original plan for how I was going to talk to you about this, but you mentioned a second ago that Dragonbane was originally a Swedish game, and now you've just released the English version. And as a podcast, we do actual plays also, and we've recorded 13 episodes so far that we're going to release probably beginning of next year, and we're having a lot of fun playing it. It's been for me, it's been a breath of fresh air. We're co-jamming it. I'm running a little bit, and I'm also a player, and we kind of go back and forth. It's been just for a fantasy system. It's been really fast and really easy for us to play. So I love that. I love it. It's a lot of fun. And you just have done a pre-order for a new supplement for that called the Bestiary.
Yeah.
For it.
Yep.
So if you want to take 2 seconds to talk about that, and then we'll get back to Mutant Year Zero. Sorry, everyone, I
Sure.
just got sidetracked.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're enjoying Dragonbane. I mean, it's kind of a new. That is also like Mutant, an old, like a new edition of an old, Swedish RPG, but it's been developed quite a bit. I mean, it's not the same game as it was like back in the 80s and the 90s and those versions. It has its roots there, but it's definitely developed into a fully free league game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't use the Year Zero engine, actually. It uses a kind of a D20 based system, but it has some tweaks in it that are kind of from the Year Zero engine. And the reason we chose to stick with the D20 kind of system is that that's closer to where the game came from originally. So we wanted to kind of keep that in this particular case. So, but it's still very much a free league game with a lot of the free league game philosophies in it. So, but yeah, that's been great to see. So now we kind of done both of the two original Swedish RPGs and kind of made our own versions of those and launched them internationally, which is kind of fun and crazy. But it's been good, and Dragonbane is doing well. I mean, like you mentioned, we're doing the Bestiary now, and we have more modules coming along soon, and
I saw that.
Lots of stuff coming for Dragonbane.
Well, and there's already some third-party content from it.
Yeah.
There's I backed a Kickstarter from Andreas,
Right. Yeah.
his group. I backed that, so I'm looking forward to getting that. So that's really great. If you guys haven't checked it out, Dragonbane is really a lot of fun, and if you're looking for something fantasy but maybe a little light, a little dangerous, I can definitely recommend it. But anyway, back to why we're here. So 2014, you launched this product, and it's kind of the foundation for the Year Zero engine, which has probably come a long way. And I've got a shelf of your products over here, and each one has a slightly different take. So, are there anything that you've done in these other iterations of Year Zero that you wish you had done or would like to incorporate back into Mutant Year Zero?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, like you said there, I mean, the Year Zero engine that kind of grew out of Mutant Year Zero was never a general engine before. There was never an idea of developing a general kind of game engine. That came after, actually. So, but yes, of course. I mean, now it's coming up on 9 years now that we released Mutant Year Zeros. Of course, we have tweaked and developed that game engine a lot since then and done lots of new stuff with it. And so, yeah, there's definitely things that, even though I think it still works well, there's definitely stuff in there that we've probably done a bit differently now. Things we kind of have thought of later on and kind of, well, that was a really nice idea. And then we probably would have done that if we had thought about it 9 years ago. But I guess that's the way it goes. And of course, without giving too much away, and nothing's really decided, but we do aim to continue the Mutant Year Zero game line in some way. And of course, the game being almost 9 years old, a new edition of the game is not completely out of the question. So and if we do that, then we get the chance to actually incorporate some of those changes and new ideas that we've been tinkering with for the last decade.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard, I don't know where, but just rumors or people speculating about a newer edition, and actually Ad Astra. So I used to go to a lot of those updates you were doing, those live updates you were doing on YouTube with Doug from Victory Condition Gaming, and invariably, like every time there was somebody in the comments that would ask about Ad Astra.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about it. So every time that would come up, I was like, what is this Ad Astra thing? Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, why is there so much chatter about it? What are people, why have they been clamoring for it for so long?
Yeah, it's actually like a two-step thing. It was actually, Ad Astra was kind of one of those things that was just like the idea was launched and the project was kind of got started but then it really never materialized, or at least it took a long time, because now we're actually doing it. But that happened like twice. First, it was in the late 80s, some year. I don't remember the exact year, but anyway, the company that back then published Mutant launched the idea of Mutant Ad Astra, which was Mutant in space. Basically, this idea. And that was a game designer called Anders Blixt, who's still active today. He launched this idea of doing a supplement for Mutant in space. That didn't really happen, at least not his version of it. Actually, that then spun off and turned into Mutant Chronicles that we discussed earlier. So Mutant Chronicles is the original Mutant Ad Astra, but by then Mutant Chronicles is something quite different. It's not Mutant in space really. It's a completely different thing, even though it is in space. It's very, very different in tone and style and everything. I mean, it's not the post-apocalyptic mutant going into space. It's rather its own very different setting. So, but that kind of what happened. So that original idea of mutant in space didn't happen back then. Then we thought it'd be fun. We had the ideas for it and thought it'd be really cool to do something like that when we developed Mutant Year Zero, like a decade ago. So we actually launched the idea of Ad Astra again right around the time that we released the original game in 2014. So it's actually mentioned in the core book. Mutant Ad Astra is referred to as an upcoming expansion in the core book released in 2014. So that means that ever since then, at least, kind of the mutant fan community have kind of been knowing about Ad Astra, that it is coming. But for a variety of reasons, it took longer for us to get around to it and finish it. For things happen, so it just took much longer than we intended to actually get to complete it. But so that's one reason why that feels great and a lot of fun to actually be able to release it now. Finally getting it out to fans who have been waiting for 9 years or 35 years, if you want to go all the way back. Yeah.
But yeah, so now you have a lot of anticipation and hype to live up to. So that's got to be a little
that is true.
Try some anxiety. But so you've done a lot between the first, the core rule book, and now there's quite a few supplements. You've got GenLab Alpha, Mechatron, and Elysium, and those are all marked as standalone books. So does that mean you can play Mutant Year Zero without the core rulebook? Or those are their own core rule books? Is that what that means?
They are, yeah. I mean, that's the way we built it back then. The Mutant Year Zero line is kind of 4 separate core books that are all standalone, and they all each include like a full campaign, really. Even the Mutant Year Zero core book, but also GenLab, Alpha, Mechatron, and Elysium each have their own campaign included, also all the rules you need. So they're really standalone games that don't really require the Mutant Year Zero core book. However, they all kind of intersect at the end of each campaign. Without giving away spoilers, the idea is that each of those 4 campaigns all end up with that particular type, that character class, ending up in the zone, in the general mutant universe. So they are really 4 origin stories, one for each character class, and how they ended up in this world, the post-apocalyptic world of Mutant. So in the first game you have the mutants, second one is the mutant animals, then the robots, and then the humans from the Elysium enclaves at the end. So they all kind of tie together, so you can, once you've played all those 4 campaigns, you can kind of continue playing using all of the books together in the zone, as it's called, the kind of the mutant world. So that's the way those were designed. Then we have some other smaller supplements around those as well, but that's kind of the way we put it together back then. That was a lot of fun and an interesting way of doing things. It's perhaps a bit tricky, because it's always easier to have like one clear core book for the game that includes everything, So if we do it again, I don't think we do that exact same thing. Also, since we've done it, we did like one game for each character class in a way, and now going forward, we're kind of bringing them all together. So that's what we did released a campaign book called The Grey Death a few years ago, and now Ad Astra as well. Both of those have all of the character classes included. So now it's not, they're all in it together, and that's kind of where we go forward now with Mutant Year Zero, is to have all of the separate character classes available.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that, and they, from the notes I saw, they look to, if they like the campaigns from those other rule books, they can kind of continue them with the Grey Death and Ad Astra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually had the idea way back was to have Ad Astra also to be its standalone game in a sense, like the other 4 core books. We decided against that in the end, primarily because since it's really going into space, it's a bit of a separate setting from the other. So that would really, instead of intersecting together with the other 4, it would kind of go off in another direction, and that would really require a whole new game line,
right?
Which we, I guess, could have done, but in the end, we decided against that and really keep it more as an adventure, more of a traditional campaign or adventure model for Mutant Year Zero.
So talking about the zone, so for folks that haven't played Mutant Year Zero before, can you talk about the setting from the original books, and then how the setting has changed with the Ad Astra?
Yeah, I mean, the idea for Mutant Year Zero, and that hence kind of the name Year Zero, is that we wanted to get back up to like the beginning of the apocalypse and of the setting. And since this was a new edition of a game, the original Mutant game, the Swedish game, and some editions that came after, they took place much later, when the society had kind of, after the apocalypse, had kind of been rebuilt and turned into something almost like a steampunk type setting, which is kind of cool. But we wanted to do something different. So with Mutant Year Zero, we kind of dialed it all back to where, mutants started. Where did the mutants really come from? So that's really what we're doing, is basing the game on a small settlement of mutants in kind of the zone, which is like, that's the wasteland. And the idea is it's a starting point where the characters and the players don't really know what's outside of this small settlement, which is called the Ark. So the game is really about developing the Ark. So the game has kind of rules for developing the settlement in projects and strengthening it, inventing new stuff. So you can't do that. And it's also about exploring the world around the zones, discovering other settlements, other kind of remnants of the old civilization, kind of, and exploring also where the mutants actually came from. So that's kind of the idea of the whole campaign that's included in the core book, is that you get to discover what happened to the world, what's out there, but also where did we, as this mutant tribe in the zone, come from.
Okay. For Ad Astra, like how do you get, I guess without revealing any spoilers, how do you get from the Ark to space?
Yeah. There is an explanation. There is a clear answer to that, but that's very much spoiler territory.
Okay.
But because the campaign in the Mutant Year Zero core book kind of ties directly into Ad Astra. I can't really explain it in detail without spoiling too much, but there is definitely a direct link between that campaign that I mentioned about the mutants kind of discovering their own origin and Ad Astra. But also, it expands beyond that. Ad Astra expands the setting in that it kind of tells the story of what happened not only on Earth, but also in the solar system after the apocalypse. So it kind of broadens the horizon in a more general fashion as well. And even though it's a campaign or adventure module, it also has a chapter about the general setting about the solar system. So you can really, if you want to, continue and build more adventures in that setting. So it definitely also expands the world of Mutant in a more kind of a general way.
That's right. So, Matt, do you have? I've been talking a lot. Do you want questions?
And I let him go. I let him talk. Well, I guess I don't know if we mentioned it before, but it's not just that Ad Astra's coming out. I was reading. You guys are going to be doing reprints of all of the Mutant Year Zero books, and I guess this one of them that caught my eye was this the Mutant Mechatron. I guess that's been out of print. So having not played, now I'm very curious. What are folks looking forward to getting in this long out of print Mechatron? Is this and from what you just mentioned, is this the story about sort of like these robots?
Yep, it's the robot book. So yeah, like the others, it has like rules for robots, obviously, like that character class, how to create characters in that class. It also has a full campaign and a full setting. It's set in like a big robot hive, like a robot world under the sea, actually. And that kind of, it's a story of the robots, how they gain self-consciousness and how they kind of reevaluate, because they've basically been waiting. What's happened is there was this underwater city built by humans and robots, but then the humans left and never came back. So the robots have just been waiting, basically, and just continuing carrying out their daily routines, just waiting for humanity to return. But then some robots have started to, gain self-consciousness over time and started to question what they're doing and why. And it kind of, that kicks off a whole story of things and conflict. And there's stuff from the outside coming in, and so that kind of kicks off a story about the robots and how they became self-aware and in the end venture into the wider mutant world. And that's kind of what that campaign is. It's also a lot of fun building robot characters, and it has the book has rules for that, how you can kind of switch out parts, so you can kind of you really actually build your character piece by piece, because it's a robot, so you have like the head and the torso and like the undercarriage, and they have different stats, and you put them together in different ways to kind of build your character piece by piece as a machine, which is also a lot of fun.
And having not played in that kind of concept, modular design, does it allow for a player to change their character? Like, I think regular adventure, I go and buy a sword, or I know I'm going to a dungeon, I go buy a rope. Might I go and buy legs, or no, I want treads, or...
Exactly. That is exactly possible. You can kind of, replace your undercarriage to something, a bigger, better, more modern model that is kind of have better stats. You can do that. So you can kind of replace any part of your robot body as you like. You can kind of trade parts with others, and it's a lot of fun like that.
It's kind of cool. Very modular design. What are some of the other big top titles that you guys are re-releasing? You think people are going to be excited, or anything that's been not available for a while?
You mean in the Mutant line? Or
yeah.
I think Genlab Alpha and Elysium were kind of on the verge of being out of print. Maybe they're out of print somewhere, but not everywhere. I'm actually not sure. But we decided to reprint all of them. We were kind of not sure whether to do that, because it's these books have been out for a while, and like I mentioned, we are kind of looking possibly to a brand new edition. But then we felt, and we're releasing Ad Astra, and we should make sure all of the core books are in print, because even if we do a new edition, it's going to take some time. It's not like it's not going to come out tomorrow. So we feel that these books they deserve to be in print and available to players for some time more.
Well, I guess especially after your description, since many of them are feeders to Astra, you having that available to all the players who want to play different kinds of characters with maybe different kinds of origins, having all of those available, that's a good way to make sure you get the widest viable group of folks traveling out into space.
Yeah, definitely.
So you talked a bit about character creation in Mechatron. I guess in general, because going from the different systems, some of them are life paths, some of them are point based and things like. But there's different ways that Year Zero handles character creation. How does that generally work with Mutant Year Zero?
Mutant Year Zero is fairly straightforward. I guess it's in a sense point by, but since the scores are fairly, you have your attributes range from like 1 to 5 or 2 to 5 really, but basically it's a fairly short range of numbers, and also the skills are the same. They go from 1 to 5, so that means it's not a long, complicated business as I assign those points. It's done in a matter of a few minutes. But that's how it works. You have 4 attributes, and 12 skills plus a specialist skill for your specific role. So so it's a fairly, we want Mutant Year Zero to be a fairly fast and easy game to get into, easy to play and understand, even though there is more depth to it once you play it. But it's a fairly immediate game to get into, and the core system is fairly straightforward. You roll dice pools of d6s, and you want to roll sixes, so it's a fairly straightforward base system. Then there's more to it, but the basis is pretty straightforward.
And you have archetypes in there also?
Yeah, there is definitely that. There are archetypes or roles. They call it a few different things in the different books, but you have like a bunch of archetypes in the Mutant Year Zero core book. You have other ones in the Yellow Alpha, others in Megatron, and yet more in Elysium. So each of those books have their own set of archetypes around, like between, I guess, 5 and 10 in each book.
Okay. So it sounds to me it shares a lot in common with how Alien is built for character creation.
Yeah, it's fairly similar in that respect. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you've played Alien, then it should be pretty easy.
It should be easy to try out Mutant Year Zero. Yeah.
But no panic or stress.
Yeah. So with mutants, you've got mutant powers. With your, you've got your animals. The robots are very cool. So it's like, all right. So what's cool about humans? Because given all these very cool things, it's like, what makes humans cool?
I know. That has been a constant problem since 1984 when the first edition came out. That who wants to play if you can be a mutant or a animal or a robot? Why would you want to be just human? What are they? What makes that fun? The way we approached it is that the humans of Elysium, the Elysium enclaves, are kind of. They're not just normal, ordinary. They kind of have a culture that kind of goes back. We have there is a backstory for all of this, but they kind of goes back to the 19th century, kind of that Victorian style things. They bring a bit of that, and they are a bit of they think they're the top of the food chain in a sense, and they kind of. And what they mechanically get, they don't get mutations, they don't get robot modules and things, but they get kind of connections. They are great at kind of the social game, and they have specific abilities which are called contacts, which are specific contacts that they can use to great effect. So basically, if you want to play, it's more of they are the best kind of social characters out there, and that can be useful definitely even in a world like Mutant Year Zero, because there is definitely. You can get help from your contacts and family and things like that. So we kind of focus a lot on that part for the Elysium humans.
Cool. Yeah, and when you're to talk about go from characters to some of the other aspects of the game for exploration, is that kind of how Forbidden Lands does it, where there aren't set locations for things? You kind of randomize some of the exploration aspects to make it more of a hex crawl type thing? Is that what you're doing, or?
It is similar to Forbidden Lands. Actually, I think Forbidden Lands is kind of the evolution of Mutant Year Zero in that sense, because Forbidden Lands came out a couple of years later, and definitely, in a sense, Forbidden Lands is Mutant Year Zero in a fantasy setting. But we also did change some things because it's fantasy and because we had learned some new stuff and tried some new things out. But yeah, it's very similar at its core. It's not hex crawl. It's a kind of a square grid map. But yes, you explore the zone square by square in a similar fashion to Forbidden Lands. Also, like the scenario locations, they're called special zone sectors in Mutant Year Zero. They generally don't have like a set location on the map, so the GM can kind of place them where it fits the campaign.
Okay.
So in that sense, it's also similar. So yeah, if you're familiar with Forbidden Lands and exploration, Mutant Year Zero is not identical, but definitely similar in style.
Yeah. Familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, looking so I was able to look at a photo of the front cover, the back cover, and the table of contents. So one of them, and I'm more of the rules guy, it says new rules. So I'm super excited. And as you've been talking about the potential for a follow-on version, right? So I'm just kind of wondering, what kind of new rules did you all introduce for Ad Astra?
Well, for Ad Astra, of course, being a space supplement, it has rules for space travel. It has rules for space combat. It has rules for just zero gravity, vacuum, things like that. It's kind of where the extra rules come in. There's also like a new pilot archetype in there, and things like that. So that's where the extra rules are focused for Ad Astra.
Nice. All right.
What's your kind of guide stick for making sure you're not making the game too crunchy? Like when of course, with space, you need to have rules for zero gravity and maybe ship to ship type combat and things like that. But how do you make sure you don't add too much to it to overcomplicate things as a designer?
It is a very good question, and that's actually one thing we did grapple with a lot when designing Ad Astra. And actually, I think one of the reasons it took so long to complete it because that was a question we never quite got past. Well, we did eventually, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
Because, of course, when getting into space and sci-fi, that kind of science fiction, you could either go like the complete space opera, space fantasy route and not really care and just, or you can actually try to do something that has some kind of scientific basis. And then it gets very complicated, but it can also be fun. Mm-hmm. And since even though you have in Mutant Ad Astra, there was always going to be like, talking, walking cats and dogs in space, since you had the mutant animals. So it had kind of a humorous tone to it in a sense. But it's also science fiction set only in our own solar system. So that meant we don't need to actually worry about faster than light travel or anything like that. We can actually keep things a bit more grounded in terms of the sci-fi and the science for that. So we did actually develop some pretty complex systems and fairly realistic systems for space travel. How would it actually work to travel between the planets of the solar system? Because there's trajectories of the planets take into account, all of that. We did in the end, there is still some of that, but we did boil it down a bit because we felt in the end that Mutant Year Zero is not about that level of scientific simulation. That can be cool, but that's not really what this game is about. This is more a game about exploring the post-apocalyptic world, and in this case the post-apocalyptic solar system and what's been happening there, and discovering that. And so we did, I think, in the end, find a pretty good balance between still retaining, some a sense of groundedness in the terms of the science. You do have to keep track of, air supply, energy, fuel. There is definitely, and space travel takes a long time, even though you're just going from Mars to the asteroid field. It still takes, days and weeks. So but a balance between that and still having it to be a mutant game, which is not bogged down by rules.
Right. So is there vehicle to vehicle combat, or is it more of you have to kind of like come together and it's more of a personal thing?
There is space combat, like between space vessels. That can happen, even though it's not like Star Wars. It's not going to be like a huge space battle. It's not. It's much more low key than that. But yeah, there can be conflicts between spacecraft.
Yeah, I've having played quite a few space games over the years. That seems to be the toughest one to make fun for everyone at the table.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's more engaged when every character has something that they feel cool to do, which is usually just hitting something with a heavy stick. So
it is definitely, I agree. I mean, we did grapple with that. I mean, we have a space combat system in Coriolis, we have it in Alien, and we tried a bit of a different approach in each of those. And I think it generally works, but it's definitely a big challenge to get everyone engaged and make it a fun role-playing experience in space combat. So for Ad Astra, space combat is not really the focus of what you will be doing. That's not kind of the core. It's not a key thing. It's more what you do when you arrive, rather than fighting space battles between spaceships.
I think that suits me a little better. But yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was going to say, and so there's the Ark. There's this underwater city. Is there a starting point in Ad Astra? Is there?
Yeah.
Where will the players kind of set out from?
It sets out in a space station above the Earth, so you kind of start close to the Earth, but it's a space station that has been up there for a while, but it's crumbling and falling apart, and actually its orbit is decaying, so it's starting to burn up from the bottom up because it's starting to kind of enter the atmosphere. So it's kind of a very volatile situation where you start the game. You can start either as a guest from Earth, if you can play with the same characters from Mutant Year Zero, that for some reason that I won't get into, but you can actually travel up to the space station. Or you can create new characters that have lived there, that they are from that space station. But really, that it starts in a fairly unstable situation, and the starting point for the campaign is really you have to do something about this situation. Otherwise, this big space station that's been up there for a century or two will fall out of the sky. So that's kind of the starting point.
Yeah, that seems like a kind of a fun call to action. You can really put like when a GM, I like putting some pressure on the players and giving them a time limit on what they need to do. I think can up the action and make them make decisions a little bit faster and maybe a little bit more recklessly than they would normally do. So that can be fun.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So right now you can pre-order the book. And when do you think it'll be you'll be done editing and ready to send to the publisher?
It's planned for a release in late January, I believe.
Okay.
If I'm lying, I think so. So it's being printed right now. It's
okay.
Yeah, we haven't received any copy here at the office yet, but hopefully it shouldn't take that long. And as soon as we get it out into the warehouses, we'll send it out to everyone who pre-ordered, and then it will go into general release like late January. So I think the plan is to send it out to everyone who pre-ordered during January, so that you should have it before the kind of retail release. That's okay. The plan. But most likely, maybe someone will get it before the end of the year, but I think most pre-orders will go out in January.
Okay. Are you doing the so like I know like Urban Operations, I pre-ordered, I got the PDF and then I got the physical copy. Are you doing something similar with Ad Astra?
Yeah, it's kind of the standard now for us. Almost all pre-orders we do that. We don't launch the pre-order until the PDF is ready to be released. So basically when we launch the pre-order, the PDF is done and you get it right away. And that's also a great way to get some final feedback. And if we missed something, some typos or something before we go to print. So we try to allow a couple of weeks between sending out the PDFs and going to print. And that we did that in this case as well. And we got some good feedback. So now that's all kind of implemented and the book is being printed.
Great. Awesome. And I just maybe cut this, but VTT type support. That seems to be like the hand in hand with a lot of stuff that's coming out. Is there current VTT support for the Mutant Year Zero products and to include for Ad Astra? Will that be coming or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't quite remember. I think the core book is available at least on Foundry, I believe.
Yeah, it's definitely
and
on
maybe
Foundry.
Some of the others as well. I have to kind of double check what's actually done, what's already. That's right. I think all of the core books are actually already on Foundry. Mechatron is on Foundry, Genlab Alpha is on Foundry, Elysium is on Foundry, and the Year Zero is on Foundry as well. So all of those 4 core books are on Foundry. I don't think they're on the other platforms just yet, but at least they're on Foundry. And I think we're doing Ad Astra on Foundry as well, possibly even the other platforms. But definitely, as far as I know, it's being worked on a Foundry module for Ad Astra also. I believe so.
Okay. So I do want to touch on, you've got a lot of other things going on. I do want to touch on that, but are there any kind of closing comments you want to say about Ad Astra before we switch gears?
I don't know. I think for us, it's great to finally do it, finally finish this book. Well, that we also have been looking forward to for a really long time. And it's also great to actually do something new for Mutant Year Zero, because it's been a while. Beyond that, I mean, the last one we did before this one was the one I mentioned, The Grey Death, and I think that was 3 years ago. So it's been far too long without any new Year Zero books. We are doing the Zone Wars miniatures game that is set in Year Zero universe. So that is also happening, but that's a little bit of a separate thing, even though it continues the story and it really ties into the RPG. But it's a minis game.
That's fun.
Yeah,
great. So you've got other products coming out. I already mentioned the Dragonbane Bestiary, which you can pre-order now. I know there's been some talk about another like a campaign book for it. Does that have a name, or that you can?
Yeah, we have a bunch of things planned, but I think the one that we kind of semi-announced, we had a little convention here, a local one, where we unveiled the cover. I don't think we have really, but made any official announcement quite yet. But that is a campaign expansion. It's also actually for Dragonbane, we'll do completely new material, but we're also doing some remakes of some cool older stuff that we're revamping, we're updating it. So this is actually a campaign that is called Path of Glory, that came in 3 parts in 85 and 86. There were 3 adventures, and we're compiling it into one book, but we're also developing it further, so it's not just that old adventure again in the same form, but it's really a completely new product, but it's still based on that classic campaign. It's like the first actual campaign that was released for Dragonbane or Draklemoner back in the 80s. So it's like the original Draklemoner campaign, the original Dragonbane campaign that we're doing a new version of. But we're reworking the text together with the original author, which is a lot of fun. But then we're also adding like new art, new maps. So it's going to be a completely new product, but it's still based on that same story from the original.
That's fun. And you've got Walking Dead, another huge IP.
Yeah, that's cool. We just got, we got some boxed sets to the office just the other day. That's really cool. They're looking great. So I'm really looking forward to having everybody getting that. I think it's arriving within a week or something to the warehouses, and then it should go out of backers during November.
Beautiful. And One Ring. You've got a new supplement for that.
Yeah. Tales from the Lone Lands is a campaign book with 6 adventures for the One Ring, set in Eriador, and it's a lot of fun. We play tested it in the spring here, and that we just had so much fun. It's just an amazing, I think Gareth Hanrahan, who's doing the writing, he's got such a perfect tone for Tolkien, and it's just it's such a great game, and that book is coming out also in November. We're running pre-orders now, and it's I have it somewhere. Anyway, I can't see it right now.
You got a few things there. And I think the last one I wanted to bring up also was just in time for our Halloween here, is the new Vaesen expansion.
Yeah, definitely.
What was that one called again?
It's called the Lost Mountain Saga, and that is a really, really cool book. It's the first campaign book that we've done for Vaesen, which is more of a longer story arc of interconnected adventures or mysteries, as they are called. Previously, we've mainly done standalone mysteries, because the game was kind of built for this kind of episodic storytelling kind of. But in this one, we finally get to tell a longer story. So it has 5 mysteries that tie together into a longer story arc. And that kind of allows us to tell a more epic story. And it's written by Eleanor De Lorenzo, who actually based this on a podcast. She did a podcast for Vaesen, completely independently from us, that did really well. And we thought it was fantastic, and so we contacted her, and she turned her podcast, a live play podcast, into a book. So that we work with her on. So we're really happy about that. That's coming out now, like on Halloween night. So next week, Tuesday, October 31st, it's officially released.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, I really appreciate you spending some more time with us. It's always great to talk to you and get a little insight into the mind of a designer and someone who runs a TTRPG company that we have a lot of respect for, and we enjoy your game. So thanks again, Tomas, for coming and chatting with us.
Thank you,
Matt. Do you have any?
Thanks for spending time with us. No, I appreciate it. I'm very jealous because I did get to play Dragonbane at Gen Con and thoroughly enjoyed it, but I'm not able to play with the group, so I'm kind of like have some Dragonbane envy going on.
Yeah, we're gonna try and get him back involved because I need to convert him over to this game.
System,
so
yeah.
Cool. I'm playing Dragonbane in we're starting in an hour or something. We're actually play testing that Path of Glory campaign that I told you about. So I'll get my Dragonbane fix right.
All right. Well, I will clear my calendar and just
we're gonna hop on a plane and he's gonna be right.
Well, thanks again, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon, and hopefully have you back on for something some new and fun in the near future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great.
Thank
you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.